MAST. Yeah, Erasmo already defined it. It used to be called Minnesota Agricultural Student Trainee, but we've kind of just changed that name to MAST International years ago because we place students and trainees all across the United States, not just in Minnesota. So it's an international exchange program where people mostly come in. We also can send some American trainees abroad to get the same type of experience, but where you get paid experience in agriculture and horticulture, and like I said, it's all throughout the United States. And when you come in to the inbound program in the United States, you do so on a J-1 training visa, so it's meant to be kind of an internship. So we're located here at the University of Minnesota within the College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource Sciences. And so Minnesota is kind of right in the middle of the country and just above Chicago, kind of, if you can kind of northwest of Chicago. So it's a large university and a large college that MAST has been part of since 1949. And so I didn't update these numbers, but just because we didn't have the map updated, but just to give you a general sense of 2 years ago, we had about 260 participants. Our maximum is usually before COVID, we had about 300 every year that would come in. So that year we had it from, they came from 43 different countries, including some Zamoranans. And you can see we place them all throughout the United States in a bunch of different types of training. And so we try to have a very wide variety of countries and training types and locations. And these are kind of the main parts of the program. So we have you come and you do your practical training where you're out on farms or businesses and getting this hands-on work-based training. It's also meant to be a form of, cultural, cross-cultural opportunities. And so you're learning about the different culture in the United States and improving your language skills and things like that. And then we'll talk about a little bit later, but we also, because MAST, what makes MAST unique is that we're at the university. And so you may also, after you're done with the practical training experience, you may be able to take an academic a semester of study here at the University of Minnesota. So I'll let David kind of go into a little more detail.
All right, so I'll talk just a little bit about the practical training. A majority of our placements are work-based, and I think that goes in line with Zamorano, right? Learning by doing, and and I think some of our placements are a little bit more in research. It's still work involved. You're not just standing there learning what's going on. You're going to be using your hands and doing what's involved. The goal is to rotate participants through the entire business or operation, so you get a full sense of what would go on in this type of operation. And then the idea is really to learn new skills, see it from an American perspective, and hopefully bring back good knowledge, good thoughts about the United States and your experience. So, we started with Zamorano when it was the participants came on their pasantilla, right? And that's been great, and it still happens today. I think we had last year maybe about 10 participants that did their pasantilla, and we help with the visa process. In this instance, most of the participants found their own training sites, I think, with requirements from the college, and we then just made sure that they were good training sites, that we would look into it, talk to the host trainers, and then if everything worked well, we were the organization that helped with the visa. The one other benefit was you're still in school, and so you were an intern, you came for a short experience. After graduation, you qualified in a different way as a trainee, or as an intern again, but within 2 years, and we can explain that in a little more detail, but you could have potentially a second experience for up to 12 months. That may also include study. All right, and so I'm going to quickly go over this because I think you generally know what's involved, but there's some points to talk about. So we'll hit these different subjects. The first is crops. And one thing that it's important to know is that most of our placements revolve around a season, a growing season, right? So here in the US, March, April start date going through November, December. These are the placements with huge tractors, large fields, right? Can be 2,000 to 20,000 acres of row crops and soybeans, many areas. But those that really love equipment, this is a good opportunity, a good agronomy student. Livestock, dairies, definitely. Most are very large dairies that we work with, very modern, but we have some that are unique, smaller, that maybe have something special. They're doing genetics, or and it could be attached to another part of the ag industry. Or so just things to think about. Most placements are 12 months. And so they can be at different times of year because there's a little less seasonality when it comes to working with livestock. Lots of work always with the animals, right? Beef cattle, mostly cow calf operations, like in places like Montana, kind of feeling a little bit like a cowboy or a cowgirl, and really having a nice experience. Now, the beef industry has really expanded for our program. We have a lot of beef research or beef genetic placements. We've got them in Texas. We have them in Colorado. And so we probably have increased on the beef side of things, probably an extra 15 or 20 participants recently. So in this instance, it's either cow calf or it is more year round, and it's dealing more with a little bit with the genetics or the research behind it. Swine, it's pretty straightforward. Most are 12 months, and it's inside. We don't have animals grazing, and so but very high end placements. Horticulture, we have greenhouses of multiple sizes, smaller family operations, and some very large companies. A nice opportunity with garden centers attached. So someone who really would like to have that experience. The time frame here oftentimes is a January or February start date. Ends in August. Not all are like that, but it works really well if you'd like to study in September. So a nice combination. And then we have a lot of fruit and vegetable placements. They start a little bit later in the year, March or April. They go to November. And it's working with apples. University of Minnesota is known for their apples with different varieties, and also other lots of fruits and veggies. Sue is the specialist when it comes to dealing with wineries, but some very fantastic placements. Most are on the West Coast, high-end wineries, ones that you would maybe recognize. But it's a nice opportunity. It's a short experience, 3 to 4 months, but you get an opportunity to be there for the vintage or the harvest, right? And we do have a good chunk of participants that go there every year. And we have some specialized placements, just a couple one-offs, a beekeeping place here or there. Something that's been expanding a little bit is crop consulting. So working with a company that you're scouting fields and identifying pests and different things. So that works out well. Equine, meaning we have horse placements. The reason we put it as specialized is that oftentimes our host trainers really have very high expectations for their participants. So you need to make sure that you really have a good understanding, because sometimes you're actually training the horses and they need to make sure that they have participants that are available. And then research. It's always, we work not only with the University of Minnesota, but we have students in other universities as well. They come to us. And so it's a nice opportunity to see a little different side of agriculture, more from a research perspective. These placements oftentimes require a little bit better of English and a lot of good experience. So as Sue mentioned, the second kind of pillar of what we hope to have as a result of the program is a cultural exchange, right? You're going to be here from 4 to 12 months or 18 months if you come and study sometimes. And the idea is that you get a chance to meet other Americans, other participants from other countries, right? And culture comes from many ways. You can see culture in a museum, but you can see culture at a dinner table with a host trainer, or seeing agriculture in a rural community different than what you might see on TV, right? And so you really get that full American kind of experience to see it in a different perspective. And for non-native English speakers, it's a great way. I know that many people have other motives. They want to have the experience. Maybe they want to get a degree later on in the United States. It is an opportunity to help improve English skills. There are, cultural events, holiday celebrations, local events, going to a rodeo, going to a fair. Sometimes host trainers love to go fishing or go out doing things on horseback. Those are things that you can participate with the host trainer. And then you also get some time on the program at the very end and actually during your experience as well, if it's longer than 4 months, to have a travel experience during your program. So we want you to enjoy the community you live in, but also get a chance to see a little bit of the United States. And then what really makes MAST special is this optional semester of study. It's a great university. It's a different perspective. You're in a big city, maybe versus a rural experience. You get to complement that hands-on experience you had with academics, and hopefully you're making international friendships. You're connecting with researchers, with professors. So there's opportunities that might go beyond this as well. And just to give you an idea what some of the sample course offerings are, these are the different departments where you could take classes. Each one of these departments has several classes that you can choose from. And then we have a few special courses that we have our own instructors for, a farm business management course and English as well. Just before Sue starts, I was going to say one other thing because it wasn't on there. It's dirt cheap to come and study at the university. If maybe Andrea can explain, what a graduate school, what everything costs, but for one semester, it's $1,500. My kids are in college and they're paying 10 times that for a semester, oftentimes. And so the idea behind it is that, again, it's to complement that hands-on experience. You don't get a degree, it's just for a semester, but it's a way for you to see something a little different. So now Sue will take it from here.
Yeah, so why might you think about coming on MAST? Here's some happy Zamoranans right here at Cornell. I tried to put in a lot of you, maybe you recognize some faces. I tried to put in quite a few Zamorano folks that are either on the program now or recent or have been, but just to see the wide variety of things they're involved with on MAST. So, yeah, so this is another Zamorano that's at Cornell doing some research placements. We like to think we have high quality placements. A lot of our host trainers, our training sites have worked with us for year after year. David and I go out and visit. We know them. We would trust this is a place we would want our own son or daughter to be on. We've had a lot of experience. All of the MAST staff, have done what you guys are thinking about doing. We've been abroad and whatever. And so we do pride ourselves in having, good, we're not there. We're not out on the training site. So we have to know and be comfortable with our host trainers, doing a good job, giving you that work-based hands-on experience and the cultural aspect, but also just kind of taking, good care of you. And our staff is approachable and we can help out too. But yeah, we like to think we keep our, we're always looking for new and good host trainers, to give people good experiences. So this is kind of the rest of the staff. We all have our specialties with what we're doing, but that, are maybe involved with folks more in different aspects of the program. But like I said, we're a small staff, a fairly small program. We want to make sure that you guys are, the participants are having a good experience on the program. And if you ever have questions or concerns, you can just reach out. and ask. And we also come out and do some site visits. There I am at a winery in Oregon, just making sure everything's going okay. We have you fill out evaluations while you're on the program at various times. We have the host trainers fill out evaluations about you, about the participants, and make sure that it's going all right from the host perspective too. We do we've just recently started doing some Zoom check-ins. So we go out and physically visit people, but you can also reach out and set up a couple ways to just check in if you have questions or concerns. So we do try to check in with everyone and make sure that things are going well. And then, like David said, or we've said a bunch of times, our niche, our specialty is really makes us MAST different from other. There are other exchange programs in the field of agriculture, out there, but the unique part about MAST is that we have this academic study option, and only about maybe a third or fourth to a third of our total participants take advantage of it. And it doesn't always work with the timing and things, and it certainly doesn't work for pasantilla, and whatever. But it really does make us unique. And I think if you ask any of the participants that have done both, done the hands-on practical training and the study period, they would say that they're glad they did both. And it's not mentioned here, but one other unique aspect is you're allowed to still work for half time, up to 20 hours a week while you're here. So during that time at the university, we don't find the jobs for you, but we help you. And a lot of them end up working, like one was working in the same department as Andrea here, so they do get a chance to almost have a separate part of the program by meeting researchers, working hands-on in the field and laboratories. Some of them that never thought about, going on for graduate school, maybe start thinking about that after they've done our study period, because they've seen how an American university works. They've met some more connections in their field and things, and they go on and maybe go to graduate school, not just in the US, but maybe in their home countries or abroad somewhere else. So it's really a nice compliment that we have the two parts to the program. And then just real quickly, just a few more details about what it takes, or to come on the program, is you don't really have to worry about this too much, but there's two ways to qualify for the J1 visa. Maybe I'll do them backwards. One is an intern. So if you're still a student or you're within 12 months of graduation, you would come as an intern, and then your whole program is limited to, you can only be here a maximum of 12 months in the US. A trainee would be someone who either already has a degree plus at least 1 year of experience related to agriculture or horticulture, or if you don't have a degree but you have at least 5 years of experience, you would qualify as a trainee. A trainee could have up to 18 months because you could have up to 12 months of practical experience plus the study period. A study period isn't exactly 6 months. So you can have a little bit longer program as a trainee if you've been out of school longer and have more experience. And then, unfortunately, there is a cost to the program, but we try to keep it reasonable. The program fees that we charge you are based on the length of your practical training. So a flat fee for the pasantilla fit into that. You pay $600, to come for less than 4 months. If you're here for 12 months, you pay $1,400 or whatever. And we kind of let you pay that. We could set up a payment plan too if the fees are too high. Everyone pays $600 before you come on the program for short periods. That's it for the program fees. If you're on a longer program like that, you can pay it off every month, $500 every month that you're here, for the first few months that you're here. There's also a couple other fees, some visa fees that you pay directly to the embassy. You do need to go to an interview at a U.S. embassy or consulate in your home country, or hopefully you guys could do it in Honduras if you're students or whatever. So you'd go to an in-person interview, pay those visa fees. Of course, you have to buy an airline ticket. And then, as David meant, and insurance, we have to have special insurance if you get injured or sick while you're here. And then, as David mentioned, if you want to add that optional study period, it's $1,500 to take the semester of classes. Um, and then this is a lot of details, but basically how you would apply is if you're still at Zamorano, especially if you're doing this for the pasantía, usually you work with the person in the international office, and they would have our MAST application forms and could get those to us, or we could send them to you directly as well. But so you either apply directly or through a country partner. I know Zamorano, once you're kind of graduated, they probably don't help you as much, but you can reach out directly to MAST on our website and just mention that you're from Zamorano because it's nice for us to track. Then we would have you apply to the program. And unless you're on your pasantía and already have a placement lined up, then it would go to David or I, and we would look at your application and try to think about which one of our host trainers you might be a good match for. But then we would send that application to the host trainer. So the host might, be looking at 3 or 4 people and decide you look like the best match. They might want to have a Zoom call or a WhatsApp call with you or whatever. Once they say, yeah, I'm interested in hosting this applicant, then MAST would give you the information about that particular the timing, how much it pays, where it's located, lets you see all the details, and then you would have the final say whether you accept that placement or not. Then MAST would do all the documents you would need to go to that interview, take with you to the interview at the U.S. Embassy and apply for your visa, and then you would just come when you're scheduled to come and start having your good experience. So that's a little bit about how the process works. So it's not enough for David and I to think you look like a great applicant. We have to find that right match, and that host trainer that also thinks that, that it's going to be a good fit for their operation. And yeah, and then you can definitely look into it, find out some more information on our website. There's a lot more details that we didn't cover. There's some more, photos and some more details about the timing and the different types of placement that we offer. But you can also reach out to us, via the website for some more information or, happy to connect by email or whatever as well. So that's all we have prepared, but we are also happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. If there's
Yes.
That was a broad overview. So let me get out of this and
Okay. Thank you, Sue and David, for that great presentation.
yeah.
So we will now move into the Q&A session. And if you had any question, please feel free to type them in the chat, and I will be happy to read them and facilitate that discussion. But you also can just unmute your microphone and ask the question directly if you want.
Hello, excuse me.
Yeah, we can
Hello.
hear you, John. Hello.
I have a question. If someone wants to start with the internships at the January to the next year, what is the best time to start with the application?
That's a good question. So it does take some time. Sometimes, like I said, it might take some time for us to find that good match, with a host trainer that's going to, accept you. Sometimes you might apply at the wrong time of year. You might want to come for crop production, but you say, "Oh, I would like to come in December." Well, there's not a lot of crop growing, in the United States at that time. So then your application might be here a little bit until we start making those placements. So we're always working. And then it also, once we find a placement, it can take up to maybe 8 weeks or sometimes even a little bit longer to get through the visa process. So we're always kind of working at least 2 to 3 or 4 months ahead of time. Right now, I'm actually making a lot of winery placements that would start in July, August, September. David starting, to think about, maybe later season crop, placements. So I'd say the earlier the better. If you can always just apply, but on the application form, we ask, what is your preferred placement type. How long would you like to stay? What are your preferred months you would like to start? So I'd say, even if you could send your application 3, 4, maybe even, 5 or 6 months ahead of time, that would give everybody plenty of time to kind of look it over and find the best place. Sometimes we get an application and we find a placement very quickly and everything moves very, very fast, but we'd like to kind of give you, enough time to prepare too. So 3 or 4 months ahead of time, ahead of when you would like to start is good to apply, I'd say. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we had a question in the chat and say if I had already been in a J1 trainee before with a different university, am I eligible for MAST?
Yeah, possibly, depending on timing. If you're recently returned and are a graduate already, like say you already have graduated, you had your experience as a pasantilla, you need to be within a year of graduation. And if you are, then you would still qualify as an intern. And so you could. If you did not, or you did this after you graduated, there needs to be a 2-year interruption between programs. So you would have to wait 2 years from the very end of your last experience to qualify. And that's if you're a J trainee, an intern. There are other J categories that would not qualify. Some people come as work and travel. Some might be a J scholar. Those are all a little bit different. But I'm just giving a quick general response. But that is about what it would be like. And that happens on occasion, especially if someone had a pasantilla. They either come on MAST shortly after graduation or they wait a couple years. We try to have it be, if it's a similar experience, something that's a little more in depth, right? Because you're going to go to the embassy a second time and you want to show that you're gaining either different skills or you're adding to what you had the first time. So those would be some of the things that would need to be in place, because we want you to be successful getting a visa second time around too.
Thank you.
I see the next chat. I can go at that if you want. Like, what if we already have a training site that would like to have us as trainees, but don't know the process for a J1 visa? Is there something MAST could do? Yes, we would like to be in contact with you to make sure you qualify for the program, right? But then give us the contact information. We'll reach out and we will ask, very specific questions. They need to understand what's involved in hosting a J participant. And there's rules and regulations for them, just as they would be for our trainees. Certain wages, having insurance for the farm, making sure they understand what the program is about. And if they pass through all of those, then yeah, and then we can make it happen, and pretty easily make it happen. And so that happens quite often.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Is there any opportunity for people that already have done grad school and they are still in the country? Can they also apply for the program, or they have to leave in order to apply for the visa?
You'd probably have to go back to your home country. I'm guessing you're on an F visa now as a graduate student. You would need to be on a J1 visa to come on the MAST program. So I know that some of the rules changed about that during COVID, and maybe you can sometimes switch visas, but I think there's quite a lengthy process for that. So what I've heard from some people that have tried doing that, it was almost just quicker and easier to just go back to their home country and apply. MAST would issue the documents apply for a J1 visa, and then just go back and end that visa and come back on your J1 visa. Yeah.
I have a
Is that
question.
it? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do
Visa.
you guys post your internships like on social media, or every applicant should go straight to the website to apply?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't.
but
Yeah. Yeah, we don't tend to put our opportunities up on social media because, like I said, we might then get 50 people that say, I want to go to that farm, and they don't necessarily qualify for that farm. Or, like I said, it's the host trainer on that farm that, accepts you or not. And so when we have partners like quarterly, like Zamorano, we would send, kind of a list of here's some open placements coming 4 or 6 months down the road, and some more specifics about some placement types. But otherwise, we don't really advertise because it would just be too crazy to try to manage that, and we would get inquiries from places that we can't accept, applicants from and whatnot. So we just would have you, if you're interested, we'd ask you to fill out an application. It doesn't cost anything to apply. We could see a lot more about your background experience and what you're interested in and the timing and things like that. And then we'd be able to, like I said, start sending that out to make a match, hopefully. Or if it really doesn't look like we can provide what you're looking for, or at that time, we would just come back and say, we don't have that opportunity right now. And that's really the best way, is to just go ahead and fill out the application, give us more information, give us something to share with potential hosts. And then, like I said, if we get an offer, you always get the option to say yes or no to that option, And does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
I can see one of the questions that came in. It's like, how does this work for someone who already completed a master's? If I graduated about 12 months ago and have been working since then, would I still be eligible? Yes, you're a graduate. And so you would qualify with 1 year of experience. You would be just fine. And so you definitely would qualify to participate. And the second question was, hello, I graduated in 2021 and have experience in family farming business. I'm interested in beef cattle. When should I apply and when could I start the internship? I would say it depends. If you would like to have a full experience, cow calf, be on a ranch, work with cattle, work with crops, the best start time is February or March. So I'd apply in October, November, and then it gives us time to have you come then. If you would like to have a short experience, just the end of kind of a harvest, but they have beef cattle and they're doing some year-end work and maybe doing some breeding. You could have a short experience that could be August, September, October, November, right? And then if you are interested in a genetic site, we have a couple places, maybe 3 or 4 trainees that are in Colorado. It tends to be whatever time of the year. And we probably have about 10 places in Texas. And in those instances, I just know that August and July are very slow times because it's so hot. And that if it's a breeding facility, those are the only 2 months that it's very slow. Outside of that, it could be just about any other time.
So again, never hurts to just put your application in and mark your preferred timing. And if we can't match that, we would probably let you know, that timing doesn't really make sense, but it could also just sit here for a few months if you're not quite sure, but you're like, I'm just going to apply now and I'm going to say I'm interested in October, January, and February or something, then. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
If a group of people want to go together, for example, 4 recent graduated, can they go to the same farm, or will it be separate process for each one, and each person will go to different places?
4 is a lot. I'm just going to be realistic. Again, as Sue mentioned earlier, the host trainer is part of this placement process. So if there was to be a place where there is a lot of people, it could be a large greenhouse, potentially, a very large dairy. And it's good or bad. I mean, it's possible, but they also have to have places available. Sometimes we make placements where we have a couple people start here, a couple start later on down the line, so not everybody's coming at the same time. Two people, it's a little more easy than four for sure. So not impossible, but it would take a special placement. I don't like making promises, and I will say that is a lot more complicated, just to be honest.
Yeah. We
Thank you.
haven't really had that request for a bunch of friends to come together. Sometimes we get a couple, that want to come, just the two, and and oftentimes that's even somewhat difficult to, to find a place that will take two at the same time. Not always, but so never say never, but it does make it a little bit harder, but we could try.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
see that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I can see there's a question about accommodation. And so how does the accommodation work once the internship work or placement is underway? It varies. It varies greatly. A percentage of our participants live and work with a family. It's a family operation. They live right in the home, have meals with them. It's not as common. When the program started at the beginning, it was always that. But a lot of the sites are much larger now, and you have research sites. It's not so much a family. It's a company, or it's a business, or it's a university. So we would try to give you this information in advance of the placements. It's the host's responsibility to help with housing, because it's very daunting for you before you arrive. But it can mean many things. It could be living in a bunkhouse that's close, or there's another house that's close to the farm, and they set it up, and that's where you'll be, and it's all set. I just made several placements with a seed company, and it's great. And what they did is they said, here's the deal. We're going to have several placements for participants. Everyone is going to have to pay $900. And it sounds like a lot, and it is, but we are going to find the apartment for you. We'll get it. You don't have to do anything. You're going to get paid a nice wage, because it's a little bit more to pay. There's going to be a swimming pool there. There's going to be a weight room. I mean, it's awfully nice, but so it ranges, because some students will not pay anything because it's built into it. And some maybe will get a higher wage. It's our responsibility to make sure that your wage is fair and that the housing is fair for where you live. If you're going to live in California, the wage is likely going to be higher, but so are the costs. If you're going to be in Montana, you might get much less in a salary, but in the end, you might not have many costs beyond what you're earning. So, we would provide this information so you would know, but it is it's a lot of variables, and it can be quite different from one to the other. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, Sue, if I've covered it enough.
Yeah, it's good that it just depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, depends on the site. But there is housing. You won't when you if you come to the university after your training, then we give you we give you options, but you have to find your study period job, and you have to find your study period housing. But you've been here longer, it's kind of part of your growing up, on the program, you take a little bit more responsibility. But when you first arrive and you don't know the place, we don't expect you to be able to go out and find an apartment. So that's why we do tell the host that the housing has to be arranged before you arrive. So doesn't have to be free, should be okay, decent, livable, and it has to be ready for you. So yeah.
And I just
Yes.
wanted to add to that, that when you come to campus, we as the subchapter want to also, help a little bit with that, and helping you, we're here already. We know which campus are you going to be, because we have two campus. We can help you find roommates. Sometimes there's another somewhere I know is living alone, and we might accommodate things. So if anyone applies and needs to come in, let us know or reach out. And some of the professors also have connections with the frat houses, so they have also helped find housing for our
Yes.
students. So yeah, so if you're coming to campus, we are here, and we'll help you make that process easier and finding a job and finding housing and that kind of thing.
Awesome.
I see there's a question about more detail about provide more detail about research opportunities. Um, yeah, there are quite a lot. I mean, some applicants come right here and do their whole practical training here at the university, working with a researcher in the agronomy department or plant pathology or soil and water, like Andrea's. And or they're at Cornell, or a different university, or like David said, we have special sites that are doing just cattle research. So they're on a site, they're not at a university, but it's a site that does breeding and looking at animal diseases. I've started to make a lot more crop consulting and crop research placements that it's maybe a private company like a Syngenta or something, like a company like that, or the seed company or the soybean or corn breeding companies that David mentioned. So you're out in the field, you're evaluating how the plants are growing in the field. You're doing pesticide trials, you're collecting things, you're bringing them into the laboratory and weighing the samples. You're using drones to scout, fields. You're scouting for pests and diseases. So both in livestock and plants, we have a lot of variety in the types of research placements. Sometimes you're in a laboratory, sometimes you're part field, part laboratory, sometimes you're out, breeding the cattle and evaluating, doing pregnancy checks and things like that. So really depends on what you're looking for. We don't have a lot, of research. A lot of our placements are just flat out, agricultural placements on a dairy farm, at a winery, in a greenhouse, things like that. But more and more, we're seeing some more opportunities for the right person, the right match, for these kind of high-end sort of specialty research kind of placements. So quite a lot of variety, if that helps. So.
I see one other question says, can a trainee have multiple hosting organizations as part of their training program? Yeah, it's possible. It's not always easy. Again, we're dealing with timing. If you're on a horticulture placement and you're there from January to August and go, all right, well, I want to try another horticulture placement. Well, it's out of season. And so it might not match up to have it be sequential. But there are opportunities. We work with a Dutch organization that sends a lot of students to go to some specialized dairy placements. And on occasion, I've had someone go to two different sites, but we set it up at the very beginning. Our program isn't really set up for that, but it's possible for the right scenario. So it happens maybe once a year, once every couple of years. So not impossible, not necessarily easy. What I would suggest is have a full experience, come and study, and then maybe have a second experience with a researcher on campus. And if you have time remaining, sometimes you can go back to your original training site, or you can continue with a researcher full-time so that you can maximize the full 12 to 18 months.
I just added our email. A couple people have asked for our email accounts. I didn't put that on the presentation, so I just put that in there for everybody. But when doing the study program, are this taken into consideration for credits? Oh, that's a good question. Or maybe graduate school in the future. So the bad news is no. The good news is it's very cheap, $1,500. But the bad news is because it's so little money, you're not actually officially enrolled at the University of Minnesota. So you're on MAST. Here, it's almost like you're auditing the classes. You're not paying the full fees. So you don't get an official transcript from the University of Minnesota. You're not officially enrolled. MAST does give you a certificate for every class that you've taken and gives you a grade. I know that's helped sometimes. Universities in other countries, like in Brazil and stuff, have been able to look up the syllabus of that class and give somebody credit for having taken that, even though it's not official and they don't have an official transcript. If you're looking at going to a different university, a graduate school here at the University of Minnesota or a different university here in the US, it likely won't count. Maybe it could count as a prerequisite or something, but you wouldn't get credit to be able to apply that, as an official class that you've taken though. So that's the bad news, but it is, still, I think, useful to get a good feel, get your foot in the door, make some connections, and see how, an American university works. So, yeah.
Says, does the optional semester count as part of the 12 to 18 months of the JA1 duration? Yes. If you're an intern, you're limited to 12 months. So the practical training and the study needs to be within 12 months. If you're a trainee, you could have up to 12 months training and a semester of study, which is about 4.5 months. So no one is really going to get officially 18 months. You're going to get 16.5 months or something like that, depending how it all times out. And some participants as a trainee would come for 8 months. They would study for a semester, and they would still then have 4 months remaining of training. And then oftentimes they would go back to the original training site, or they would continue their study period job full time for 4 months. So we do make that possible. It's kind of like a carrot and a stick. You did good at the practical training. You did good at the university. All right, we're going to reward you. You can go back to your original training site, or hey, stay on your study period job if they're able to keep you on, and you can work 40 hours a week instead of 20. And so yes, those are the options. Excellent questions.
Yeah.
I can tell you're all Zamorano grads or students. Smart.
Exactly.